I spent the last couple of years setting my own company up to do it as a consultancy basis to get really into delivering value for other clients and other products. Because what I found when I was working for somebody else was, you don't necessarily get to the end position, and sometimes you have to compromise along the way. And what I wanted to do was have a little bit more freedom and pick and choose the projects that I wanted to do.
So you mentioned delivering value, so just expand a little bit on what the definition of delivering value is.
There's a number of things really. It can be value from a point of making the product better. It could be from a point of view of perhaps the product is too expensive. It could be over-engineered. Perhaps it's not delivering the functionality to the end user. So started off with a vision, and when it got to the end, it kind of did about 50% of what the client thought it was going to do, and he put it into the market, and actually it wasn't doing anything like he wanted it to do. Perhaps it could be a number of issues, material, quality. Mainly what I find in my line of work is usually that they're wanting to reduce the build cost, and they wanted to improve the functionality of it. So the value that I sort of bring is around streamlining that process. You can go to other companies and other consultancy companies and they'll charge you a whole load of money. I work a little bit differently to deliver the value chain. So it has to work both for the client and for the factory. But the idea being is that the volume should grow and the cost should come down is the goal.
So just step us through the process of taking on a job and what a typical brief would be and how you would then...
Generally, the companies that come to me are usually at the end of their rope where they've gone down the design process a few times and they're not getting, either the factory's wrong or the design's wrong or they're just hitting brick walls. And a lot of that has to do with the brief at the front end perhaps wasn't correct. So I'd class it as a distress project. By the time it comes to me, they're at the end of their rope. They've spent a pile of cash, and what they don't have left is a lot of patience. So what they're looking for is a delivery and a quick turnaround. And then you get the more complicated projects, which are more around sort of like the military side or the aerospace side, where you've got very specific things to achieve, and there's lots of compliance issues to negotiate, things like ITAR and things like all the regulations around compliance. ISO, for example, all these kinds of things impact where you can go, where you can't go, and whilst you're also trying to deliver a cheaper or a better product, there are challenges around that process.
Most of the work that you do is in China, and you tend to work with a group of companies. Can you just expand on how the advantage of using your company as a sourcing and delivery company is aided by the fact that you've got this network of factories?
So obviously I've been doing this for a long time, so what I've got is I've got a global network of companies, not just in China but all over the globe. So what these are is effectively partner factories. So it's really important when you're dealing with a foreign entity, or really important when you're trying to deliver a project, that all the team members in that project understand what it is they're doing, and you all trust each other to deliver what it is you're looking to do. China's quite a unique place to do business because it operates on so many different levels, and there's lots of challenges with China. Lots of people make lots of mistakes because they've never done it before, and there's lots of assumptions that they make. So what we now have is a collective of global factories spanning all industries, depending on kind of what it is the project is and what it is we need to deliver and the time scale in which it needs to be delivered in. So we've got a very flexible supply base. They pretty much can do anything. I think the limitations for me really are sort of pharmaceuticals and sort of oil and gas. Everything else sits within the remit of the delivery for me, but those two elements sort of sit outside just because it's so specialist and so specific. It really is. It's just too difficult for the general side, but everything else sits within our sphere.
Okay, so we're talking about manufacturing in China and finding a specific partner to make a specific product. And when we use you, we are looking to find a factory for a client, and normally the client hasn't necessarily done manufacturing abroad before, and they have lots of preconceived ideas, and they may or may not have made mistakes in the past and are frightened of using China. So can you just give us some sort of typical mistakes people make
Sure.
using China as a manufacturing base?
So I think one of the first mistakes people use is they always perhaps pick a factory that's already been doing it for decades. So that can be good and bad. So if you pick a factory that's been doing it forever, A, they've got some expertise, but B, you'll be such a small player for those guys that your business will mean nothing. And so you'll have loads of on cost, the time scale will be crazy. So what we tend to do with China is find factories that want to grow and want to be more than just a supply partner. What you really want is a proper partner. You don't want necessarily a buy or sell. I mean, you might want to buy sell relationship, but when you're making new things, you definitely don't want a buy sell relationship. So really, the brief is the critical component of a new project. What is it you're trying to make? What price are you trying to reach? What time scale have we got? Where are we in that design process? Do you have full CAD? Do you know the baseline components that you're looking for? Where are the gaps in that brief? Where are our challenges going to be in that brief? Is it going to be, if we're making a cordless product, for example, it's going to be the PCB, the battery, the motor. Are those components sorted out? Or if you're making a military product, is the factory able to sell to the US? Is the factory is it certified in these following countries? There's a set of questions that get asked right at the very front end to define the approach that we'll need to take. And every project is completely different because every requirement is completely different depending on kind of where they are in their process. And a bit like what you were saying before, some people already deal with China, so they've got some understanding. Some people are brand new, that have no understanding whatsoever, or some people are already dealing with the factory, have a product, and it's just going the wrong way totally. So it just depends on where they are in that scale and where the brief is. But the brief really is the most important part of the project, and then having a specification to go along with that brief. So these are the critical sort of starting blocks for sort of assigning and taking on a project, and then working out the partners that are going to help us deliver that project.
And what's the difference between what you do and a trading house would do?
Well, so my company doesn't really get involved in the selling side of it. So what we do is we are at the front end. So what we are is a product delivery company. So we take 3D from companies like yourself, or we take sketches, or we take problems, and we turn that into a solution. But what we don't do is then get involved in the selling of that solution back into the client. Our job is to make sure that if he wants a pen or whatever his vision was at the front end, that's what the factory is going to make. And then we work to make sure that the product is then made exactly as per the product brief. So that if you've ordered the drill, for example, and then the drill is broken, if you order the drill, for example, and the drill then needs to have a 13mm chuck, deliver this battery, deliver this torque, all these things, we make sure that at the end of that drill does exactly what it was you wanted it to do when it went in at the front end. So, and then when it comes to ordering, we will help you with the factory, but that's your position at that point. How that comes from the factory to your sales position or the client's position. We don't get involved in it. We can do, but we typically don't get involved in that process. Our job is to deliver the solution to the problem they're facing, or the product to the brief, or the quality control issues, or the value engineering. We don't get involved. So we're on the design manufacturing arm as opposed to the selling.
Right. So if I went to Alibaba or Asian Sources and I tried to find somebody who was doing angle grinders or cordless drills, there would be lots of people, and lots of those people wouldn't actually be the factories. They would be the sourcing companies that would sell you.
So there's a couple of so if we just deal with the mechanisms that China sell in, so that we can understand at least how they work. So what you've got factories, obviously, and then you've got agents that represent factories. Now, agents are really good if your volume is fairly low, but you want to buy lots of things. So if you're somebody like what's a good example? Well, Amazon, for example, or somebody like Tesco or Asda, you might want You might not necessarily want a direct relationship with a factory. You might just want to deal with an agent who can supply you 50,000 products. So he would do all the legwork for you in China. You would just give him your list of your shopping list. I want a grinder, a drill, I want washing products, I want toiletry products, I want baby products, all the categories that sit within the non-food section within a food aisle. And then these are the price points that it needs to hit. This is the specification I'm looking to achieve. This is the range that I want. A trading house could go away and sort that for you and give you all those options. They'll charge you a premium for that. And then, but that is effectively a sourcing job, or what we would call a badge slap job, where you're just buying stuff the factory already produces. You're perhaps changing the colour, putting a different badge on it, making it look a bit pretty, putting in some new packaging, and selling it as your own brand under your own OEM. What we do is create new things, the things that don't exist today. And this is the challenge when you're making new things, because this is where it all tends to go a bit pear-shaped. Because when you're trying to take a factory down a road that it's not naturally going down, that's where people like me bridge that gap to make sure they stay on their path and they don't get distracted and they don't start adding things to the design that we don't need, or trying to do things that are away from design. Because China is typically risk adverse in the way it operates. So it's very comfortable if it's making drills to make a new drill. But if you then want it to make it, a slightly different category, it is cautious by nature, and it's always trying to. It's a bit like Lord of the Rings. The ring's always trying to go back to Mordor. The factory's always trying to go back to its natural curve. So if you try to make new stuff and move the needle so it continue, to move the factory onto a different level, it takes work and effort.
Okay, let's talk about the problems that we've had collectively, about the cultural difference between definitions of product. For instance, we have just been trying to source a level. There's a little bubble level. I will put a picture up of what a bubble level is, but
I think it's more of a challenge, Mike, than it was a problem.
No, this is a communications thing. So
yes.
There you are. That's the bubble, and my definition of a level is something that is black and white. It makes something level. The Chinese definition is if it looks like a level, and it fits the definition of a level. It's got a bubble in the middle. It's got liquid inside, and you can see it. Then it is a level. Whether or not it makes things level or not is a grey area.
Well, it comes down to the specification, which is what we were talking about at the beginning. So when we specified a level, we just said we needed a level. When we just said it needed to be a round level. Now, to be fair, as China, that's what we got. We definitely got one. We got a round level. The fact that it didn't produce level when you tested it, that was our fault, because what we should have said to the factory was, we want a round level and we want it to be this accuracy. So this is around, it's not necessarily communication, but it's about making sure your specification has no wiggle room in it. And what I mean by that is, when you're asking China to do something, whatever it is, you have to understand that they take what you're saying as a literal position, and if you haven't been specific, then the bits you're leaving out are effectively left for them to decide what that's going to be. So, in relation to our level, we thought we were being specific. We wanted a level, and in your mind, a level should be, when you tilt it, when it gets to 90 degrees, it should be 90 degrees. Right? That's what you're thinking. China's thinking they just want a level with a bubble in it, and whether that works or not is slightly inconsequential, because what we've supplied a level. Now, they've not specified the accuracy of that level, and they've not specified what angle it needs to tip in order for it to read. So because we didn't miss those two parts out, they just went and said, there you go, there's a level, that's the price. And when we've got it, we've gone, what the hell is China doing?
Yeah.
We've got a level that doesn't work.
Yeah, so the learning is that your specification has to be, either you work with them to develop the specification,
yes,
but you can't expect the specification to be right first time, because they tend to err on the cost reduction end of things.
This is one of the key points around dealing with China. You have to understand with China, back to the Mordor story, it's always trying to reduce its cost position. Every chance it gets, it's always trying to save money for the factory. And it's not a direct relation to, and some clients think they're like trying to shaft them. But that's not what China's trying to do. What China's trying to do is be efficient. So, and that's what all leads back to the core specification of making sure everything is specified and reducing. What you want to do is have a specification that has absolutely no wiggle room for the factory whatsoever. So if you're making something, everything is specified. The plastic, the thickness, what temperature you want it to withstand, how, the testing that you want it to be to go through, so that you get exactly what it is you want at the end. Because if there's anything you've left out of that specification and the factory can take advantage of that, they're going to. Because as far as they can, in their minds, that's fair game. If we've not specified it, they're looking at that as well. The client, that doesn't.
If they didn't care, we don't care.
Yeah, but it's not care. But if they didn't specify it, it's not important.
Okay, we were talking about typical nightmare scenarios that we've heard of that haven't necessarily happened to us, but we know have happened. Like, for instance, containers arriving with things in it that you didn't expect them to be in, or completely empty containers. And for the people who are frightened of using China because they've either heard these stories or they believe this can happen, can you just give us a quick sort of bullet point list of things that you need to do when you're a new company going to China for the first time? What are the things that could happen?
So I think first of all, it's important to know if you're dealing with a trading house or a factory. So you want to know that beforehand, because
sometimes you don't know.
You don't know because they're really convincing that trading houses are fine. And there's nothing wrong with a trading house, but you just need to know which. Because what you don't want to do is, if it's a trading house, they've got the right. They can buy that from anywhere. So if you're buying power tools, you're buying a hammer, whatever you're buying, and you're dealing with a trading house, and you don't know the factory that they're going to, every time you place an order, you could be dealing with a different factory, which means your quality can be very uneven in that process. So it's really important to start with is to work out whether you're dealing with a factory or a trading house. And the only way really to know that sometimes is to physically go there, so that you eyeball the situation. The next thing you need is you need to know what you want. I know that's really obvious, but you really do need to understand what it is that you want and how to ask for it, which is around how you build a specification to make sure that if you want this product, the specification reflects that, so that that's what you're going to end up getting. And then you need some form of QC. You've got to have some way of holding the factory to account, and the only way to do that really is through quality control. So you need a pre-shipment report, or you need some way at the end when they've made whatever they're going to make, that you've got a document that checks that machine against the original specification that went in, to make sure that they've made exactly what it is that you want.
And if we were dealing through a buying company as opposed to the factory, and they were running their own QC,
yes,
that's again where a problem can happen.
Yes, because sometimes China works on a different set of rules to the rest of the world, and sometimes the QC perhaps is not done to the level that you want it to be done. So when you use QC, the ideal way of using QC, if you've never done it before, is to use something like TV or Intertech or a registered body. So you've got some way of going back to the fact. QC needs to be standardised. You can't have varying degrees of QC. The whole point of QC is so you've got a standard document that anybody should be able to follow, and then if they follow this document and it ticks green or it ticks pass, that product then should be functional and fit for purpose. If that product then fails after the QC check has been passed, then something's wrong with the process. Something's wrong in that process. Either the guy didn't check it properly, or he didn't check it at all, and he just ticked the box, or the product was never made properly to start with, and it's just passed or put into a box. And you've got no recourse if it's through. Obviously, the trading house will want to keep your business, so obviously it's going to help you. But what you want is a professional body, really, or somebody that you trust on the ground, or do it yourself, or bring that, or before it leaves the factory, get a couple of units shipped to your buying office to physically check yourself. Right. And I would advise that if you're dealing with China for the first time, do that on the first couple of shipments, just to make sure that you're that you're happy that what is going on is going on. Because once it leaves that factory, that's it. You are on your own. But whatever goes on that boat is whatever you're getting, and that's it. I mean, trying to get money back out of a factory after, and it's really, really
You can't
hard.
send a container back from the UK.
No, you just can't. And they can compensate you, but if you've got your brand on it and all the rest of it, the damage is really bad. So you really do need to make sure that your checks before it leaves China are 100%, because once it gets on that boat, you're pretty much keeping whatever arrives the other end.
So the advantages to using your company and your network, from our point of view, is that it's you've been working with the same people, the same group of companies for a long time. They trust you. There's a certain amount of credibility on both parties' sides. They have got a lot of business going through you, so they don't really want to upset you. Yes. At the same time, you wouldn't bring them bad projects.
Yes.
So the thing that I've learnt is that it's quite difficult to get the good companies, the good Chinese companies, to talk to us directly. Yes. Because they just see us as another design business looking for quotations.
Well, they see its cost. They don't see what they don't see is the benefits of it. But I mean, there's a bit of a shift coming on in China now with the way that things are, because they can't just keep making Me Too stuff, and they know that, so they now need to sort of evolve, and trying to get factories to evolve is really, really quite hard. Back to my earlier point, they always steer to where they're safe, but where safe now is actually going off a cliff, because the business is generally dropping, so they need to evolve.
China isn't the cheapest place to make things anymore?
Not anymore, not for a lot of things now. So people are moving into India, people are moving into Brazil, people are moving now into Vietnam and Thailand, and a lot of Chinese factories now are actually looking to move, or they've bought land out in these countries, and then they're training and moving their people. So one of our factories that we deal with is now moving to part of it's moving to Vietnam because of the trade issues with the US. So there's lots of things that impact China now, from customs and duty excise on trade through to higher labour costs. And obviously, as China starts to grow and their standards improve, the costs inevitably go up. So they can't always keep their position as low as possible. So they're always looking now to move now to the next lowest cost base. So there's a internal struggle with China right now. The good thing that China's got is they're incredibly stable on the technical side and on the quality control side. Even though, depending on sort of which position you set at, you could say, well, quality is pretty low in China, but that's down to the management of the quality as opposed to China.
Oh no, I don't think the quality is low. I think the challenge is, from a European point of view, is that there are certain expectations that you expect that you don't need to itemize to the nth degree.
Yes.
Whereas you do need to be more specific.
Yes.
But it's a cultural thing.
Yes,
it's the same as if I was dealing with India or if I was dealing with Japan, or there's you basically got a completely different culture that functions really well. I mean, as an economy, they are doing fantastically well, and you try and get something made in this country, machined, delivered in a small batch in a couple of days. Yeah, you can't do it. You cannot find people to make things in this country.
Well, the skill set's gone. That's why and if they do it, it's cost you 20 grand. It's just the price is crazy. So we're going to do some more of these little podcasts about China. And it'd be good for you, if you've got any questions, you can send us the questions, and we can perhaps do another one. We do a little sort of a questions and answer session. But if you do like these kinds of little podcasts, give us a like, throw us a comment, and we can do a few more.